Hey, Kenworth, man, it is great to reconnect with you. And I want to just say thanks for joining me here on the podcast.
Man, it's great to be here, buddy. Long time. Too long.
Long time. We were just talking beforehand. We think it was maybe 2010.
Yep.
This crazy guy with some coffee shows up in my office. Tell me that story if you can remember what you were doing there. And I just remember though, I like this guy immediately.
Oh, well, thank you.
He's got something he wants to share with me. What was going on then?
Yeah. So I had partnered with a guy who had a ministry who was, the way I describe him, do you remember the movie with Sean Connery, Medicine Man back in the day?
Yes.
He was like the nonprofit medicine man. I mean, this guy was incredible. And he had these coffee farms in the middle of Guatemala that I was fortunate enough to have some of this coffee. And I talked to him. I said, "Man, what are you doing with this coffee? This is amazing." And the stories that were being created and how people were doing well, and by selling, he was just basically selling the coffee in states when he'd come, 2-3 times a year to large churches or groups or people that have been and seen the ministry and the work that they were doing. So, me being just an idea guy and, an execution guy, and, I love to tell stories. It just made sense. So I partnered with him for a while to get that off the ground and launch what would be called Penalito Coffee. And so that's what I was doing back then. And, I wanted to go big, wholesale, just giant accounts.
Yeah.
I didn't want to really schlep retail. So I was just trying to, get the coffee in the hands of the right people and influencers like yourself, Jeremy. So it's,
I don't know how you found me.
that was it, man. I was always schlepping a story.
Yeah.
And stories that I cared about and that meant something to me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was doing. Ultimately took a different direction and, I got out of it, but
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking that, you came in and you were passionate about it. And I remember because I was at the college at the time there, and I remember you just went, "Hey, I just want to get in front of people,"
That's right.
and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but
That's right. Cause I wanted to be in like your break room.
Yeah.
Right? That's, and I wanted to tell the story, and I wanted to all your students. And I was looking for the deltas. Yeah.
I love it. I just remember thinking, absolutely. Cause again, I don't know, you had and have, a certain way about you. Sometimes people are coming in and they want to push things and everybody's got something they're selling. But I don't know. I just remember thinking, yeah, that sounds great. How can we help you? Because it's just the way that you carried yourself and
Oh,
felt like,
thank you.
we connected. And
Yeah.
then though, I think, shortly thereafter kind of lost touch a little bit. And then you moved on to South Carolina. We'll get into that here in a minute and what you're doing now, but take us back just a little bit. Cause I remember though, when we met again, we were talking and sharing stories and you were telling me about some of the things you've done professionally and correct me if I'm wrong, New York.
Yeah. I was in the entertainment business. Yep.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, who is this guy?
Yeah.
What were you doing? Tell me back then.
Whew. So, like all, mid 20-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
I decided at 24, like I want to start, an entertainment company, because why not?
Why not?
And I guess, it comes back to relationships for me, because I had met the right guy who I was doing some work in Indianapolis, actually doing some construction work with my dad. And I meet this guy who just knew everybody in town. And he had tabs open. Everybody knew his name. You walked down the streets. He was doing these giant parties and events for, everybody from Kanye West to big liquor brands. And it looked so fun that I said, "Ron, I want to do this in Orlando." And, I was a kid, and we didn't call it mentoring, but that's essentially what he did. He coached me, mentored me, connected me with the right people, which is how I sort of I took probably 10 years of work and crammed it into 2 years. And then all of a sudden I'm doing events and putting on, uh, well, what we said was we were curating some of the most incredible experiences from some of the world's most incredible brands.
Hmm.
But more practically, we were throwing really ridiculous parties that made the brands sticky to
Okay.
those that participated. And so we were fortunate enough to land clients like Red Bull and Scion and Russian Standard and Absolute and Jack Daniels and just some crazy, crazy,
Mhm.
crazy stuff.
Hmm.
And so, you know, that's essentially what I was doing, which led me to Chicago and Miami and New York and connected with some of the largest names in the industry.
Yeah.
But, a couple of things happened along the way that, number one, I was married and was having kids and, not the lifestyle that's
Mm.
conducive to,
Mhm.
being a family man.
Sure.
So, and then, then years later, the economy took a dive and, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
brands were not spending ridiculous
Mm.
amounts of money to throw
Mhm.
crazy parties. So budgets shrunk, so did the company. And then we went on to do other things. So,
Yeah.
uh, crazy experience. And it was cool to see how that led me into many other things in life and sort of gave me the confidence and the wherewithal,
Mhm.
um, and the grit
Mhm.
to know that I can go do it. Because when I came back to Orlando in my mid-20s, I didn't know anybody in town. And then all of a sudden, I became Ron. I became the guy in Indy that everybody knew. And so I was, the sort of man on the street for a few years there. So,
So
looking back on it,
were you doing that in Orlando then?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of the big events and parties of the
Yeah.
brands were mine.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we got into crazy stuff. I mean, we did, international graffiti conference. We had
Mm.
these warehouses downtown. We thought, well, how cool it'd be to have the best graffiti writers in the world. And it was very urban, but we had almost 4,000 people show up to that party. And the best graffiti writers on the planet show up in Orlando, paint on 10,000 square feet of walls. So just, wow. And this is all pre-social media. There was no social media
That's
back then.
amazing.
I think back and wow, what we could have done today. So it
Mhm.
was a lot of grit. It's one by
Mm.
one, step over step, person over person, people telling people. And the theme of my life is always relationships.
Mhm.
And so if I look at that, even that time, it was building trust and rapport and deep relationships that when you give enough of a value and you're true enough and you are who you say you are and you um, provide what you say you can provide, people will show up and people will support that. And so that's been a theme in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, great experience. Don't, um, yeah, it was a wild time, but good to be on this side of it.
Yeah.
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 But
So when we met then, were you still doing that? You weren't, right?
no,
Okay.
no, that was, so I'm terrible with years. You'll find this if so I tell time. I have 5 kids and I tell
Yeah.
time by my children
That's good.
and and geography, where I was in the world.
Yeah.
So that was 2000 and like 5,
Oh,
2005, 2006, something like that.
okay. Okay.
2000 into 2007 and then 8. So yeah, pre recession.
Yeah, and like you say, way pre-social media. So to have that kind of success on that is amazing. I mean, what was that like having that kind of success at that age?
It was I didn't have any good counsel around me.
Hmm.
So I didn't really know what I was doing. It was all about the moment, all about the experience in front of me. So I really didn't have any foresight other than the next event
Mhm.
and the brand that I was building and the community that we were putting together. Um, so it was a little bit of, felt like a group of lost boys, you know?
Mhm.
So, just trying to figure it out. build something cool, but really not a lot of guidance there. So, but it was certainly fun,
Yeah.
certainly a great time, and just fun to, as a 24, 25-year-old guy, to kind of come on the scene and plant my flag. It just, it
Yeah.
was an incredible confidence builder. Even though ultimately it failed, it it worked for a while, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
So
And what do you attribute the success to, knowing that you didn't have this social media that we have now that can be used for this kind of thing to really make it explode? I mean, what did you find that just really worked to get people on board with this?
yeah, so I mean, I think it's, again, just relationally, just um, building the right relationships, strategic partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
getting the right brands, and putting the right community together to support those brands. That creates magical experiences. And anytime you've got people who get along, and then you layer that in, a shared experience, it becomes real sticky. It becomes real. It calcifies the moment
Mm-hmm.
or the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just became a recipe moving forward. Let's get really great people, really great bands. Let's build a really great experience, and we'll create magic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we sold out our parties. I mean, yeah,
Wow.
people, you knew if you were coming, it was going to be a
It,
fantastic time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So were you always a really confident person? But like prior to that, and obviously you just experienced this great success. I'm sure you're interacting with people at very high levels. You're talking about major brands. So to
That's
me, it
right.
just sounds intimidating. Were you just always a confident person and just said, "Oh, I got this"?
I was always, yeah, I was
Yeah.
always confident. I always thought the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to hear no,
Hmm.
or they're going to cuss me out and throw me out of their building. And that's probably not going to happen. So somewhere in the middle, I'm fine with. I'm actually fine with the worst case scenario. If they
Hmm.
cuss at me, tell me I'm a punk kid, and throw me out of their office, that's okay. But the likelihood of, in fact, that never happened. So the likelihood of the worst case scenario happening is very small. We make those things bigger in our minds than they actually are. And so, yeah, I was always confident, and I believe that I was also creating something that was special, and I was passionate about it because I believed in what we could do as a little entertainment company. So, and
No, that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think so many folks struggle with this idea of fear, right? And
Hmm.
whether it's fear of rejection, fear of taking risks, fear of what others will think. And I'm guessing would agree that a lot of times um, we irrationally think those, like we assume that things are going to happen that don't really end up happening. So then we don't take any action. We just talk ourselves out of it because of all the things you said. But you're like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no.
Hmm. And I'm a big believer in that. Inaction is this. We need to be more scared about inaction than anything else in
Mm,
our life,
mm,
because inaction will kill you. Inaction will prevent you from achieving, the Jeremy you want to be, the Kenworth I want to be, the family we want to have, podcasts and companies. And it, it it's not going to go away.
mm-hmm,
It's just about learning to sort of dance with fear and
mm.
acknowledge it and say, I see you, but I'm not going to let you get me,
Wow.
and you take the lead. And so as long as you can lead your fear, you're good. It's never going away. It's always there.
Yeah.
Even you keep growing, you keep leveling up. In fact, it might get worse,
Mm,
but just learning to eat its lunch before it eats yours.
mm,
And I think for me, it's always been action. It's always been charge. It's always been punching and moving and
mm.
grinding. That's how I get through it. So,
Man, that's great. I
yeah.
love that. And so you've always just been that type of person. You're moving, like you said earlier, we were talking, you're an idea guy, but you don't just have ideas, you act on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Execute, execute, execute. That's right. Over and over and over and over.
And so is there anything specific that you do to help you continually execute? Is it a daily, rhythm, certain disciplines? How does that work itself out for you? Because not everybody's great at that, right? A lot of us are sitting on the sideline going, "Oh, I know I need to do that," but for whatever reason, we're not. You don't sound like you have that problem. So what are your tips on that?
So yeah, I mean, good systems, right, in place, and respecting those systems will keep you in check. So whether it's routines or it's the way I constantly iterate my action list, I call it, AKA to-do list. And
Mhm.
so thinking about the top priorities in my life are often the scariest. And, it's not just one thing. My sort of one thing involves hundreds of little sort of one things beneath it. So to get that one big thing done, there's a million little things under here, and a lot of those are scary. And so, like you said, a lot of us have things that we know we need to do. So the moment I feel I just do it. I'm like, man, I should probably call that guy. I just do it.
Mm.
That's an indicator of fear and anxiety, and I don't want that lingering. That will jam up your headspace. That is distracting, and it just, you give fear an inch, you give um, anxiety an inch, man, it'll take a yard. And so I think those moments when we know we need to do something, it's picking up the phone, or it's sending that email, or it's grabbing that meeting, or letting that person go, or whatever it is. It's you just do it. And again, just I've just seen the power of, you know big forward motion
Mhm.
in my life. And so that's a filter for me.
Mm. Oh, that's great. You've always been like that?
No, no, I have not always been like that. That has been a journey into who I am today. And I think, becoming the best versions of ourselves take different levels of skill, levels of systems and processes and learning and, adaptation. And so there's no way I could run the companies that I run today with the same brain I had as a 24-year-old kid doing, giant parties. A lot of that, I still have the same heart, and that fuels me, but I had to rewire my brain and to think differently. If I really wanted to become the businessman, the community leader that I hoped I could be, I was going to have to change. And that's where we are today. So I mean, I'm more chiseled in my, you know,
Yeah.
processes today than ever. And I'm certainly more disciplined than I've ever been.
What
So,
what helped you get there? What was the impetus for the change?
I think it's just being a constant learning machine
Okay.
and a desire to improve and desire to get better.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
I think that's always been in me.
Mhm.
So always, I never went to college, and I never learned anything sort of professionally. I learned it in the streets and from people,
Mm.
and just the breadth of experience and failures and wins and mismanagement and all of it. I just learned. And so you either learn and grow and adapt,
Mm.
or you die and fail and, you know, live a life you're not proud of or don't enjoy. And
Mm.
so for me, the option became really clear. That's not going to happen. So I'm going to, I'm going to adapt as fast as possible. And so, yeah, just kind of led that charge, and, you know, we're, we're, we're still getting there. So
Yeah.
it's a daily, weekly, yearly process for me.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy.
No,
I mean, really, like you're so um, just measured about it. I just love the perspective. You have a poise about you that and a confidence. It's just it's really cool
thank you.
to see. So, what about failure though? I'm sure you've had some failures. I mean, how have you viewed failure? Did those ever really knock you down, or was it literally just, hey, I got knocked off the horse, I'm getting back up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever got too discouraged
Mm,
thinking about it. I mean, I didn't want to waste time being sad,
mm,
just kind of, okay, well, there's some, what could I have done to make things better? How could I
mhm,
have been a better manager of, be it funds or people or opportunity? But then there's just some outside forces that, happen. And so, good friend taught me long ago, he said, Kenworth, you got to control the controllables.
mm.
Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You cannot control it. So you can't, why waste time thinking about it? And so that's always just stuck with me. And I control the controllables. What could I have done better? I sort of run through the litany of questions of things I could have done better and how ways I could have improved. But I don't let the rest bother me, and I don't let it weigh me down. I sort of, clean it out, look for the good, and take all the lessons with me. But all the dead weight, I just cut it. I let it go. I leave it behind me, and I keep cruising, and then on to the next thing.
Mm.
Um, but it has certainly shaped me because I don't know. It's without those, I don't think it'd be so sweet today. You know, and I know it's very real. It's very possible. It's very possible to fail.
Mhm.
And so, living with that sort of healthy, I hate the word anxiety, but there's a healthy anxiety
Yeah.
that I think is good.
Mhm.
It's like, this might not work. This
Mhm.
could fail.
Mhm.
And so thinking through the what ifs of that, um, and trying to just look for your blind spots.
Mm.
You know,
How do you do that? Do you have people around you that, because you've talked about relationships. So do you have
hmm
kind of a core group, maybe people that keep you accountable, that do point out those blind spots in you and say, hey, I don't know if you know, but, you know, you've been acting this way or kind of off course
yeah.
here. Do you have that?
Well, yeah, wife, she's amazing. Yeah, she, like a lot of good men have great women behind them, right? That sort of old idea adage that there's no great man without a great woman.
Yeah.
And man, she's a rock star. And
Mm.
so, just from a blind spot perspective, she
Mhm.
gets me more than anybody.
Yeah.
Business wise, I've got great partners and great teams and people that work with me that certainly iron sharpens iron.
Mhm.
So as I grow, they grow. As they grow, I grow.
Yeah.
And so it's just this constant, you're pulling each other up, like almost like mountain climbing. And
Yeah.
so one leads the rope, the other one
Mhm.
you know follows up. So yeah, just
Good.
open forum, constant conversation, not being afraid to receive good critique,
Mhm.
and having real open forms of communication, I think,
Mhm.
is extremely important and wildly helpful in
Mhm.
becoming the best we can be.
Yeah.
Being coachable is super important.
Mm.
So
You got that right, but so many people aren't, right. They think they've got it all figured out, or there's pride. And so to
that's
have
right.
humility, I mean, for someone like yourself who's very successful to still be coachable, I think says a lot. Um, and I imagine being the idea guy that you are and just your nature, I could see people coming to you for coaching and guidance. I mean, do you get people saying, hey, Kenworth, I got an idea, I want to run by you, or just, can you give me some insight here or there? Do you get that?
I do, all the time, actually, which I feel very honored that people would want to just hang with me, grab a coffee or
Mm-hmm.
lunch or beer, and just share their passions and ideas with me. Um, and it's fun. I love talking about it, and I love getting into their head and trying to figure out what they're thinking about and how they're thinking about it, and and hopefully they're thinking well about it, and just offering kind of support as I can.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Got to do quite a bit of mentoring and
Mhm.
advising for sort of my local ecosystem of
Mm.
startups and entrepreneurs here in Greenville, South Carolina. So it's been
Mm.
really fun, kind of couple of years in that.
Yeah.
The further I get along my journey, of course, the more of that you know people want to
Yeah,
do more and hang with you more. So
sure.
it's it's a fun cycle, and I can see how,
Yeah.
you know, 25 years, man, I'd spend all my days with young entrepreneurs that are just looking to build. So I really enjoy it.
Mm, I'm sure you do. And I'm sure you have so much to offer to them. You mentioned South Carolina. So after we met, it wasn't long that then you transitioned to Greenville, right?
That's correct.
And so, and that's where we kind of lost touch. And I think I still saw you online. I was like, wait, he's in South Carolina and there's a construction company.
Hmm.
Thought he did coffee. Here I am, and I'm like, what are
Yeah.
you doing now? So what brought on that transition, and then what'd you start doing there?
Yeah. So when I was in Orlando, I was doing nonprofit work.
Mhm.
Prior to being in Orlando, you know, most of my career has been spent doing construction with my father. And so everything from roofing and siding and windows and light remodeling to, you know,
Mhm.
sort of precision aluminum work and things like that. It was never long term for me. It was just kind of a paycheck. And, thus starting an entertainment company when I was 24. And then, but I knew that I could always fail and then go back to construction. Right. So it gave me um, a trampoline under me that I could only fail so bad. I always had a job that I could go back to. And so I was thankful for my dad to kind of give that, landing board for me, or springboard that, and so anyway, that entertainment company, back to construction, sort of life transition, sent me into nonprofit. That's when I met you. I was doing
Mhm.
nonprofit work in Orlando,
Mhm.
working with some wonderful organizations in town there,
Mhm.
and got to the end of that. you know, I did that for 3+ years, was having my fourth child. And Jeremy, I realized really quick why they call it nonprofit. And it's just like, man, I think this was a great journey for me. It was great for my heart. It was great for my family.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay. I think it's time for me to start exploring business again.
Yeah.
And went back to construction, and we had opened an office in the Greenville area, maybe, I don't know, several years prior to that, because I had come up for a couple of weeks to help my dad just set up the office. And so knew he loved the area, knew he loved the location, and just needed to buy myself some time. So I really left that summer, probably after seeing you, and just thought I was going to be up for the summer, and then
Mhm.
just kind of never left. And so I worked in construction for a while. I'd had a company that I started with two guys in Orlando during my nonprofit tenure that carried over when I moved. It was called Clean Tech, and we were a commercial, cleaning and surface solutions company that again ultimately failed. Worked really well for 2.5 years. We made really great money, but at the end of it, it just kind of imploded. And so that was winding down. I'm doing construction, which I'm really not happy doing, and just looking for what's next, but trying to be deliberate about it. And there was a time when I got here, my family came up that um, I took about a year, and I just went underground. I just,
Mm.
being a highly relational human, I love knowing people. I love knowing people at the gas station, the grocery store, my church, the businesses, everywhere. I like making the world feel really small. And, but there was a season when I brought my family here that I just felt I needed to make my family feel really small.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I took about a year, and we stayed in my sweet 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with a wife and 4 little kids, and had an amazing time. And it was during that sort of hiatus that I was just thinking and praying and, reflecting, and what do I want to do with my life, and what do I want to be when I grow up, and, just really asking for guidance. And then lo and behold, a couple of things happened within months of each other. One is I got a call from a good friend who was a Navy guy stationed in Monterey, California, who called me and said, "Hey, I'm getting out of the Navy in a few years, and I've really fallen in love with making beer." He's like, "I just love making beer. I love the craft. I love just the smell. I love the tastes." He's like, "And there's this community that's swelling behind craft beer." So he was on the West Coast, and this was 7.5 years ago. Craft beer has changed dramatically since then. 7.5 years ago really wasn't what it is today in Orlando or here in Greenville or anywhere close to us.
Yeah.
The West Coast, it was vibrant, it was on fire. And so he said, "There's this thing and it's happening, and I think I'd really love to be in the beer business. And you're the first dude I thought to call. What do you think?" And so for me, it kind of checked all the boxes quick. It's beer, space, culture, community, family friendly.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's just open a brewery. And if anywhere in the world, this little town you've never been to called Greenville, South Carolina." And so we started leading that charge and researching and talking to people, and what I call turning over rocks, just figuring it out, just seeing what's out there. And then simultaneously, I had an opportunity to pick up a few pieces of real estate, and was kind of scared, didn't really want to. Had really, like I said, coming out of the nonprofit space, had spent my savings, and it was kind of tough to get back on my feet, but had a little opportunity to buy 3 pieces of property that thankfully we picked them up and rehabbed them and just rented them, and it worked. And me, Jeremy, if it works a little bit, I'm like, okay, well, that'll probably work again.
Yeah.
So very just simple math. And then I kept buying as I could, and we turned a little portfolio into a real company. And so I started running both those horses at the same time. So now we've got a full-fledged real estate investment company, and what would be 13 Stripes Brewery here in town that's been operational for 2.5 years, and incredible community, and lots of traction, lots of runway, and the future is bright. So
so that's what occupies you right now, is the brewery and the real estate investment, or do you have other ventures as well?
Yeah, so I'm a part of other ventures as well. But those are the 2 main horses, as I refer to them. Those things make everything else possible. Yeah.
Knowing you've got many other ideas as well, I'm sure, that are cooking.
Oh yeah. Just capacity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have more ideas than the capacity to execute.
That's right.
From a great book, 4 Disciplines of Execution.
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it'd be right up your alley, probably.
Okay.
But you're great at execution, though, so I don't know. I mean, you kind of figured out.
No, I'm always looking to get better, right? So
yeah, for sure, you're a learner. So obviously, awesome things happening there. New area, new ventures, exciting times, vision for this brewery, and now the real estate, and you had a lot of things going. But during that time, you hit a really rough patch, a really, really difficult season. I don't know if it's fair to say the most difficult season, or one of the most you've been through.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Can you tell a little bit about that story?
Yeah. So it's about 4 years ago now, I had, if you remember, Jeremy, when I walked in your office many moons ago,
I remember.
I had the coolest hair in the room, man.
I was like, okay, who's this guy? 1, and 2, is he on the cover of GQ? I mean, I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah. So it's, I just had a certain look, and that look became my brand. And that brand, I never knew it, but it became my identity. And so I had sweet hair, just just awesome hair. I mean, and unfortunately, about 4 years ago, I started losing that hair. And I woke up one morning, and was like January 2nd or 3rd. It was just after the new year.
Mm.
And I had a little patch on my beard. You know, I always had a little scruff
Mhm.
on my face. And I had a little patch right here. And then a little one that moved under my chin. And well, I'm brushing my teeth just like any other morning, and, you know, kind of wiping the sleepy out of my eyes. I look in the mirror, I look closer. I'm like, oh my gosh, I lost like part of my eyebrow, like literally part of an eyebrow disappeared overnight. As crazy as that
Mhm.
sounds. And that was, yeah, about 4 years ago. And man, that was the beginning of the end. That really freaked me out. And it began to spread. And, you know, so I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition called alopecia areata,
Mm.
which is small patches of hair loss. Could
Mhm.
be on your head, on your beard, on your arm, anywhere. Males and females get it. A lot of times it does come back. They say it's stress related, diet related. I mean, nobody really knows.
Mm.
But you know, of course, as a you know, guy who likes to execute and take problems and fix them, and
Yeah.
I decided, you know, I can fix this. We can do this. So
Mhm.
I mean, diet and doctors and holistic medicine and toxicity tests and allergy tests, and I went down the road trying to figure out what was causing the issue and trying to fix it. And nothing worked. The doctor was like, man, you're super healthy. Nope, nothing's toxic in you. Nope, you're healthy as can be. Did an allergy report. Turns out I'm not allergic to a thing. I've always
Mhm.
had a iron stomach, eat anything. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm drinking too much beer. Maybe I'm gluten intolerant.
Mhm.
Nope, nothing. And so part of the journey for me to learn, trying to fix it, was you can't fix everything. You know, wanting to control it, part of it was, you know, having to be controlled. Like, you know, it's this thing that I can't fix. So how do you deal with that? And so from that January to that August, when I finally shaved my head, was an extremely tough period for me. And it set me in a downward spiral emotionally, you know, physically. Uh, you know, I, I knew a lot of people in Greenville. I was always in the community. I was always around the community, and I stopped. I just stopped showing up. I started to look like a freak. I mean, I was losing patches of hair. I mean, I got all the spray, and I've got the thickening powder, and I just, you know, all the lies that enter your head, like, oh man, Kenworth, this is it, bro. You've had 33 wonderful years, and it's over. Like, you're not gonna have that look anymore. You're not gonna, you know, Jeremy's not going to be your friend anymore. Or that dude's not going to buy coffee from you, and you're not going to be able to get this off. All the lies, you know, just you're not enough.
Yeah.
You don't have what it takes anymore. Because I thought it was a season where maybe my looks got me into certain conversations in certain rooms, and maybe they did on the onset, but that was never what kept me in the room. What kept me in the room was who I am.
Mm. Mm.
But it took me losing who I thought I was to find out who I truly am. And it took me losing my hair, which sounds trivial until you find out that it was deeply connected to my identity. And so it became a very real and very personal identity crisis that led me down a pretty dark and lonely path, because I retreated. I retreated from the community that I loved so well and who loved me, and I stopped showing up. And I even retreated from my family, who I love more than anything in the whole entire
Mm.
world.
Mm.
And there was a moment where I was sitting in my kitchen, and I was actually drinking a glass of straight chilled tequila late. It's like 12:30 at night. And I'm sad. I'm banged up, and I'm lonely. And I remember this moment where I saw myself as if I were looking at myself through my kid's eyes. And it just started, like, the weightiness of that. And I knew that, you know, how could I preach love and community and goodness and kindness and support and faith and hope. And then here I am crumbling under the weight of losing a little bit of hair. I can still run and hike and play ball with my kids, and play paintball with them, and live to be 107. Like, it's just hair. And it was that moment of seeing myself from their perspective that I realized that I was living a bad story, and I was running from it. Like, I was running from the very thing that was happening to me. And that's not my style. And so I said that night, I said, I can either continue to run from this thing, and that's a really crappy story, or I can just say, screw it. I'm going to run to it as fast and as hard and with as much force and punch and execution as anything else I've done in my life. And so I did, and I hit it head on, and literally I just didn't see anybody for a long time. And so that night I just started, I emailed everybody like, hey, Jeremy, let's grab coffee. Hey, Sarah, hey. And I just, by the way, people would start responding. I'd say, hey, I'm going to be wearing a, plaid shirt and a Chicago Cubs hat, right? Because now I got to show up, and I can't hide anymore because it's happening. My hair is falling off. And so I just, with massive amounts of action and really just calendar appointments and lunches and coffees and dinners and beers, I just ran headfirst in the community that I was a part of. And what I realized is that they didn't laugh at me. They didn't think less of me. They didn't point their fingers. They didn't shun me. They didn't not let me into rooms anymore, or deals, or it brought deeper meaning, deeper conversation, deeper connection, because you tend to peer up, unfortunately, cool cat, cool hair, cool, you might think differently. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I come in and I look like a freak and I'm banged up, and here's all my cards. Yeah. Jeremy, how are you? This is me. Like, here's everything on the table. Yeah. And I just became I was forced to be incredibly authentic. Mm. Not that I wasn't before, but you could just not talk about certain things before. Mm-hmm. And so it led me into this beautiful world of deep, deep, deep connection and vibrant community and love and care and support. And dude, I'm more confident today than I ever was with the coolest hair ever. And I know who I am today. Like, you can't take that from me. And so my identity, was off axis, but I found it, right? And that you can never take away from me. So it's been an incredible journey, one of the hardest of my life. And, I would say that was the second time in my life that I've ever been probably clinically depressed, and, dealing with all that and coming out of it, and just, God is good, man. People are good. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And so even the conversations I have today, the kids that I meet with alopecia and get to speak into their lives about who they are, I wouldn't take it back. You could say there's a pill I can take that my hair would grow back, and I wouldn't do it. And I've run the math. It saves me about $130 a month not having hair. So, the business P&L guy kind of loves that.
That's right. The bottom line. Wow, man, that's so powerful. Thanks for sharing so transparently. So much there. I remember, I think there was a point where you got on Facebook and shared, hey, this is what I've been going through, and I just remember you were telling the story. Obviously it took a while to get to that place. It sounds like you withdrew. Was it that moment where you thought about your kids and that perspective that really turned it around? Was there anything else? Were there people that were walking with you through this, or did you really just shut everybody out?
No, I had a close contingency, and I would say there was probably 4 guys in my life that
Mm,
without them, it would have been
mm,
super, super difficult to get through it.
yeah.
They were the guys I can meet with, and they would clear their schedules for me, and they would sit with me for 30 minutes or 4 hours if I needed them
Yeah.
to just get through it.
Mm,
And so I think that speaks to the importance of having a close group of friends who know you better than you might know yourself, and know when to call BS, and know when to lead you and guide you, and or yell at you and kick you in the we need to be kicked. So I think and just to be with you, just sometimes it's just there to listen and be present too.
yeah.
And I think having those close friends, they know when to pull which lever,
Mm,
and those guys to this day, we're dear friends, and completely uninterested in a life without those guys. And um, we walk together, and we run together.
mm,
And so yeah, that certainly carried me. And again, my wife was so incredible and so kind and so gracious. Um, and then just the community at large, when I started kind of coming out and telling that story,
mhm.
I can't thank everybody enough for just
Yeah.
the support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you say you're more confident now, coming.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
100%.
And I love what you said about identity, and just sometimes we wrap that up in the wrong things. And for you
Too
to get
often.
that clarity about your true identity and who you are is pretty powerful. I mean, what would you say, just looking back, to someone, going through some trial similar in magnitude right now, that maybe you should have done differently, that might have helped you get through it quicker or better? Was there anything that you think, hey, I just, I could have done differently, that you would use as advice for someone now?
Yes. And it probably goes back to something I said a little bit ago in terms of, when you think, oh, I should probably do X, just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so I think, anytime you give time to fear or anxiety or those lies, the bigger it gets, right? And my grandma used to, say, don't make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I let time
Mm,
work against me.
mm,
And so I'd say anybody that's going through anything, I think owning it immediately,
mm,
getting with your people, your community, those that you love and trust and who
mm,
support you and you're with you immediately. I wouldn't, just like I do with business now, or a tough conversation or a hard email, just do it. Just
mm,
literally, just don't wait.
mm,
And yeah, own it immediately, and don't believe the lies.
mm,
Don't give the lies any acknowledgement.
mm.
Don't stew over. And we all know what that's like, right? I mean, you're not pretty enough or
Mhm.
smart enough or qualified enough, or you don't have the best LinkedIn profile or the best education, right? Like that was a big one for me in life. Like I didn't have any education. I barely graduated high school. And so, the lies that creep up individually over time, it's
Mhm.
it's it's BS.
Mm,
It's just not true.
mm,
So
mm.
um, yeah, I'd say
That's
not,
great.
just not
That's
giving
great.
any time or any space at all.
Yeah, it's great advice. And you have a testimony to share. And now, like you say, you can go out, help others. You can inspire others, and people going through the same things you've been through. And it gives you a platform to help, and just be an encouragement. So that's powerful, man. It really is. And thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
my pleasure.
Yeah, I know we're tight on time, unfortunately, because knowing you're running to to a meeting soon. So we'll have to, I feel like, maybe do another interview sometimes. There's so many other things I want to ask you, but
Yeah.
as we wrap up, just kind of bringing it full circle. And you've already touched on some of these themes, but just thinking about people today and the opportunities that are in front of us to take hold of life and live it to the full, to go after our dreams, our calling, whatever it is. So many things hold us back. And again, whether it's fear, maybe it's pride, maybe we failed and we're afraid to fail again. I mean, you've been through it all. What would you just say to anyone out there who's held themselves back and they're ready to turn the corner? What would be some of those key things that you would say to someone to inspire them to get there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, if I look at my life and I look at where I am today and I look at all the things that I have gone through physically, emotionally, with businesses, failures, successes, if I were just to look at all of that and try to pick out some real themes, I think the number one most important is 100% resilience,
Mm,
not giving up.
mm,
And I think that the market, for me, I look at, like 13 Stripes. Oh my gosh, we heard 1,000 no's. It was the hardest thing I've ever done professionally, Jeremy. We
wow.
should have given up 1,000 times. But we said, no matter how long, no matter how hard, we will not give up. If it takes every dime we've got, which it did, if we have to break every piggy bank that we've got, which we had to, we will get open. If all we do is open for a week and we crash and burn, it is what it is. But we will not stop until we open.
Wow.
And we gave and we gave and we pushed and we pushed and we just didn't stop. Even though the forces of nature tried to keep us down, we just didn't stop. We punched through it. And on grand opening, we had 5,000 people show up. And we've been open 7 days a week ever since for the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
And we're growing like crazy. The same thing with my real estate company. Issues and debacles and, construction problems and permitting issues. And I could take you through, and a lot of people give up too soon. They give up right before they should, right before it's getting ready to turn up. I buy a lot of real estate from folks and groups who give up too soon. They get into a big project, they get over the head, they get frustrated, they get scared. They need to sell. I buy it, I finish it, I capture the full value. And if they would just keep marching, if you would just keep going, I just believe there's something that the market and nature and God, whatever we want to call it, rewards. And I think it's kind of when I moved here, I was a beach guy, I was a surfer, in Florida. Here, I've come to just love the mountains. I love being in the mountains. I love camping. I love being, look, I'm wearing flannel. I wouldn't have been caught dead in flannel, 10 years ago. So hiking, I love hiking now. I take my sons and daughters hiking and my wife, and I was hiking not that long ago, and it was one of the hardest hikes I've ever done. It was the tallest peak here around us, about 6,300 feet, but just a nasty hike up. Nobody really even goes there, so it's just kind of desolate and lonely. And I was walking it with two friends, or hiking with two friends over 2 days, and man, on that journey, it hit me like, this is entrepreneurship. This is life. How much time did we spend when we got to the summit? How much time do we spend at the summit comparatively to the ascent and the descent of the trip, to the hiking part, to the grinding part, to the, your knees hurt, your walking stick's breaking, you're running out of food and water, you're tired, you ache, but you don't give up. And then you get to the peak and it's all worth it. But how often do you spend right there? Not very often.
Yeah.
And so it hit me that most of my life is spent, you know, on treacherous hikes.
Hmm.
And, we live in a culture where all we want is the mountaintops. We want to go from mountaintop to mountaintop, peak to peak to peak. And that's just not life. That's not the way the market works. That's not the way, nothing works like that. And so I want to be, and I encourage others to be the best in the world at hiking and being able to last and have staying power and endurance and resilience. And I think as long as you're pushing on the right things, I don't see how you can fail. I really don't. And I've just seen those themes play out over my life. And that's probably my biggest encouragement. That's what I'm feeling today is in this season of my life is literally as elementary as it is, don't give up. Just get really good at the fundamentals and just don't stop. Yeah.
No, that's a great way to wrap up. And it might seem elementary or simple, but so many people give up,
That's right.
and
That's right.
that's what separates those that are successful from those that aren't, like you said, is sticking with it, being resilient, pushing through the pain,
That's right.
not letting failure keep you down. So I love that. And what a great word of encouragement, man. So this has been fun. I can't believe the time's already gone, but thank you so much
Yeah.
for for just opening up, for sharing your insight. And you do have a lot of wisdom for sure. And it's
Oh, thank you.
so, man. Can people find you online or
Yeah. Yeah.
where should they go to find you?
Instagram is probably the best. I
Okay.
mean, Instagram, Twitter, it's just
Yeah.
at the Kenworth.
At the Kenworth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what
Yeah.
about the brewery? Is that, you got a website, I assume, for?
Yeah. 13stripesbrewery.com. They can find us there.
Sounds
Yeah.
like a neat place. And knowing your background, I bet you throw some good parties.
Hey man, we keep that place humming for sure. It's
I'm sure
fun.
you do. Hey, Kenworth, thanks again for your time and for joining me. And we'll look forward to having you back another time.
Let's do it, man. It was an honor. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.